Good evening. I'm Vicki George. Welcome to the 2018 mayoral debate. We are at the University Club here on the University of Louisville's campus. Debating tonight is Democratic incumbent Mayor Greg Fisher and Republican challenger Metro Councilwoman Angela Leet. A coalition of more than 20 women's and civic groups partnered to make tonight's debate possible. Candidates eligible to be in this debate have met the nationally recognized polling thresholds of at least 12.5% support, including the full benefit of a 3.5% plus or minus margin of error. Now let me introduce you to tonight's panel. First, we have Paul Miles, news director at Radio 840. Lisa Benson, the editor with Louisville Business First. Mark Vanderhoff, reporter with WLKY. And Betty Baye, former Courier Journal editorial writer. The debate will start momentarily with each candidate getting 2 minutes for an opening statement. Mayor Greg Fisher won the coin toss and will go first. Mayor Fisher.
Well, thanks to everybody that put this event together, and a special thank you to my wife, Alex, who's here with us tonight. I'm proud to be the Democratic nominee for mayor and excited at the opportunity to keep our great city's momentum going. As an entrepreneur and businessman, I learned that individual success only happens when everybody succeeds. And that's the mindset that I brought to Metro government, that every one of our 760,000 citizens must have the tools that they need to succeed. When I first ran for mayor, I said my team and I would work 24/7 to get us out of the ditch of the Great Recession. My focus was going to be jobs, jobs, jobs. And together, we're succeeding. Since 2011, we've added 80,000 jobs. Unemployment dropped from over 10% to 3.5%. In the last 2 years, 11,000 Louisvillians have lifted themselves out of poverty, and 8,300 families have joined the middle class. 2,700 new businesses have opened. We've attracted $13 billion in investment all over our city. Look around, it's exciting. 18th and Broadway is buzzing with construction. Dixie Highway is being upgraded. Regional libraries in Valley Station and Okolona are stunning. The Urton Lane corridor will create great opportunities in the east. The beauty of the parklands at Floyd's Fork is incredible. The new soccer stadium district will be transformative, and our renovated and expanded convention center is adding more life to reborn downtown. We've put more cops on the street and invested in new crime-fighting technology. We have a super strong foundation for an even brighter future. We're working harder than ever to create college scholarships for high school graduates. And we're continuing our work to make every neighborhood safe, healthy, and secure. And I'm not for a second forgetting that this community only gets better when we work to lift everyone up. You have seen us perform. I will continue to fight for you every day. You deserve that, and that's why I'm asking for your support, your trust, and your vote.
Thank you, Mayor Fisher. Councilwoman Angela Leet, you now have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you so much. Thank you to our panelists and our moderator, and thank you to the various women's organizations that are here tonight. Especially thank you to my husband, Lee, and his support, and my 2 boys who are at home, Zach and Brennan, studying for school tomorrow. My sister, Alicia, and her husband, Chris, who happens to be here on his birthday, so happy birthday, Chris. This is an important race. This is a race about priorities. This is a race about holding this mayor accountable for women and children being sexually abused, sweeping it under the rug, holding no one accountable, and hoping it'll all blow over. This is a race about your taxpayer dollars being used for whistleblower lawsuits that retaliates against employees who simply tell the truth. This is a race about my opponent who allowed homicides to double and overdose deaths to triple under his watch. My first priority is public safety. There are too many victims in our community, and under my administration, I will never allow 100+ homicides a year to become the new norm. Along with prioritizing your safety, I'll bring a unique perspective to the mayor's office. I'm a mom, an engineer, a businesswoman, a city council person. I worked from the ground up. I'm the first in my family to graduate from college, right here at University of Louisville, 2 degrees, 2 master's degrees that I had to pay for by working 3 jobs. I've stepped out of the middle class and I've had great success, and I'm ready to serve you. I'm running for the children who step over body bags when they get off the bus. I'm running for those who feel forgotten by this mayor. From the west to south, from inside the Watterson Expressway to outside the Gene Snyder. I'm running for mayor of Louisville because Louisville deserves better.
Thank you, Councilwoman Lee. Our panel now will begin with questions. The candidate asked the question will have 2 minutes to detail his or her response. The opposing candidate will then have 60 seconds for a rebuttal. Mayor Greg Fisher won the toss and will take the first question. Paul Miles with News Radio 840 will ask the first question tonight to Mayor Fisher.
Mayor Fisher, good evening. Your opponent last year led the call for a no confidence vote of Chief Conrad, citing the crime rate and the ongoing investigation of the Police Explorer Unit. And the police union, the FOP, the River City FOP, has endorsed your opponent. If reelected, will you retain Chief Conrad, and how do you regain the support of the rank and file?
Yeah, absolutely. I have full confidence in Chief Conrad. Look, it's not at all unusual for a police chief to have a no confidence vote. Any police chief in the country in a major city almost has had a no confidence vote. So the question is, do you have a plan, and is the plan working? Overall crime in our city is down 7%. Violent crime is down 9%. Homicides are down 22%. We have a federal task force that's working with us to get the worst criminals off of the street. Our Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhood is having programs to lift our youth up so they don't go into a life of crime. Programs like Reimage, where we've had 400 youth, criminal justice involved youth, 95% success rate. Also prevention programs, intervention programs like Pivot to Peace, when we surround someone in the hospital who's been a victim of a gunshot wound or a knife wound. Again, 95% success rate. So these programs are working. We're working with our federal law partners, the FBI, the DA, the ATF, to get criminals off the street. We also have a new command force in place that's doing a good job, so the programs are working. We can't get distracted by a simple notion that removing one person is going to make the city a safer place. We have to be real about what our challenges are here, and we also have to take a look at what's happening in other cities around our region. The opioid crisis led to a significant uptick in all of our regional cities. Our plan, compared to the plans of regional cities, is happening in a superior fashion. Now, this does not for one moment say that any type of violence is acceptable in our city, and I, along with LMPD, will work 24/7 to make sure our city is a safer place. Last, I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to all of our police officers as well. They put their life on the lines for us each and every day, and not many people will do that.
Councilwoman Lee, you have 1 minute for rebuttal.
Thank you. I want to remind people that this mayor's first year in office, there were 50 homicides. They've more than doubled. So I do not celebrate success or tell a story of crime reduction when there are still numerous shootings. When we look at the reality of how it is for many people in our community, that there are about 6 fewer shootings. The real success is at the U of L Trauma Center, where they are saving more lives and there are fewer homicides. It is not a celebration that we've been really successful at eliminating the gangs and the drugs in our community. I've said on day one that I'll fire this police chief because leadership matters. We should never have police officers who choose to have a career in law enforcement have to work 2 and 3 jobs to provide for their family, and I will make that a priority in my new administration.
Lisa Benson, your question to Councilwoman Leet.
Employers across the region complain about the lack of available skilled workers, and our region has a significant number of jobs that are at risk to be lost to automation. Experts say the answer to this will require innovative solutions to Louisville's workforce problem. How would you put innovation to work inside your administration to help better prepare Louisville for the economy of the future?
So I think workforce is a huge issue. In fact, I participated as a Bingham Fellow. For over a year, we studied the problem of talent in our community and talent attraction to our community. As an engineer, I know it's important to be part of the solution, to find those skills and have that educational resource. And I believe that providing employees, I know from having a business that having those skilled workers and talking to business owners across our community, that their biggest challenge to growth at this moment is providing that skilled workforce, providing that talent. So we must invest in workforce, in having labor relations that can work for our community and that we can attract new people. We oftentimes always seem to chase just the millennials in our community, and it's not always about just millennials. We have many communities, other communities outside where we could attract from Los Angeles or New York or Nashville, where it's gotten very expensive to be a family in the community and to have a household. Let's attract them here for what we provide. We provide the opportunity for low-cost living. We provide great resources for ongoing education, from Spalding University, whose board I serve on, to University of Louisville, to many other resources in our community where we do provide the opportunity to continue your education and provide those skills to a workforce, to a labor workforce that can be a manufacturer. And being a manufacturer is significantly important. That is where our roots are. That's where our base has always been. And we need to do a better job attracting those jobs back to our community where people can have living wage jobs that can support their families and make families stronger throughout our community.
Mayor Fisher, your rebuttal.
Well, it's a sign of great success for our city. We have about 20 to 25,000 open jobs right now, so it's indicative of the strong economy that we have in Louisville. 80% of the job growth in a city is going to happen from our homegrown jobs, so it's important that we provide workforce development for them. And in this world we're living in right now, that it's global, it's technology-driven, it is all about the workforce. That's why there is a numerous amount of programs that we have to help people develop their workforce skills. Code Louisville teaches people how to be software coders. We've had over 1,000 graduates. 250 of them have been placed. A friend of mine named Marla, who I met through Code Louisville, was a working mom with 2 jobs. She said, I'm going to go through Code Louisville. She did it, and she now has a job making $50,000 a year as a coder. The Software Guild also upgrades workplace skills. Kentucky Manufacturing Career Centers for those that choose manufacturing. And then our Kentucky Health Career Center goes for that, and our growing health care center as well. So lots of programs here in Louisville to help people develop their workforce skills.
Mark Vanderhoff, your first question to Mayor Fisher.
Mayor Fisher, sewer cave-ins have become a frequent occurrence in Louisville, and MSD says they need $4.3 billion, but plans to do a rate increase of 20% or 10% rate increases over 4 years. Have not gone anywhere in the Metro Council. So what kind of rate increase plan do you support, and how would you get council support for that?
Yeah, no, everybody can, when they look around, they see the cave-ins in the city. We have concerns about flooding in the city. All this responsibility falls under MSD, and they face real challenges. A lot of our infrastructure in the city goes back to to the Civil War, so you can see where these cave-ins are taking place. And so we're seeing the results of this aging infrastructure every day. The challenge is people don't really think about it that much. Water lines and sewer lines are like veins and arteries. They're inside of our body, but they are critical to operating our city. The council is giving me indications, Mark, that after this election, there'll be a vote on MSD. It's gotten caught up in some politics going back and forth. There's numerous groups around this city that believe we need the infrastructure. GLI, our Chamber of Commerce, does. The building industry believes that we do as well. We cannot build our city out in a way that is attractive to business if we don't have infrastructure that works here in our city. So I support MSD's desire to raise the fee. In America, I kind of joke, it's we want everything, but we don't want to pay for anything. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So our MSD rate structure in Louisville is competitive to other cities, as is our water fees as well. One thing that I did 4 years ago as a business guy, I said, why do we have 2 different agencies, MSD and water? There's some statutory reasons why that exists, but we have combined as many of the services that we possibly could under a name called One Water that has resulted in $18 million of savings so far per year, and that's projected to go up to $25 million. So we're making sure that MSD is running efficiently. They have a plan put together by large internationally recognized engineering groups, and it's a solid plan that I believe will pass once this election takes place, because people are just seeing the ramifications of it not being funded properly.
Councilwoman Lee, your rebuttal.
Yes. I'll start by saying leadership matters. I'm an engineer. I actually did my entire thesis project about MSD. So I have a great deal of knowledge and background about what afflicts MSD. What we don't talk about in our community is the fact that there's $2 billion of MSD debt already on the books. And what they're talking about is $4.3 billion additional dollars. That's nearly, if I just do a back of the napkin type of calculation, that's about $20,000 per household in this community over the next 20 years. $20,000. And the man who's running the show happens to be somebody who is under investigation by the Ohio Attorney General, who we just read a report just a couple of weeks ago in the Courier-Journal about the fact that he may owe the city of Cincinnati $450,000 or $480,000. So the facts we have to deal with are that we have a significant issue here. We need to talk about it, but we have to be truthful about what the whole story is. We're $2 billion in debt. We need another $4 billion, according to MSD. I'm not confident that they've been truthful about the whole story, and we need to have an audit of MSD before we increase taxpayers' rates.
Betty Baye, your first question to Councilwoman Leet.
Yes, Councilwoman Leet. I read where you said that you acknowledge that there's a lot of segregation in Louisville. I want to ask some west of 9th Street questions. A lot of segregation in Louisville, but you said that a part of it, too, is that people like to live in the bubbles they're in. So I wanted to ask you, my question is what is your understanding of redlining and restrictive covenants? And do you think that people's life expectancy ought to be determined by their zip code because they like living in a neighborhood without certain kinds of services, restaurants or whatever? They choose to live there, or were these created neighborhoods? So give me your understanding of redlining and restrictive covenants.
So what I will say about my understanding of redlining, in particular in Louisville, is the fact that redlining happened under what we're familiar with, an administration that has been the same, where we haven't had any change in more than 50 years. And the fact of the matter is, it's horrible. It's not a thing that we agree with. We want to stop redlining. What I see in our community today is a new version of redlining. It's where we don't take care of the safety of our communities. And so by that nature, we reduce the home values in those communities where they're not safe. And because they're not safe, they're paying higher insurance rates, which makes home ownership even more difficult. And I think home ownership is one of the binding things that makes our community stronger and makes every neighborhood better. And I believe in the opportunity that we should be creating for people to be independent, to be homeowners, to have that opportunity to achieve what we perceive presently as the great American dream. So my idea of redlining is that we can't continue in its current form. We must provide safe communities where then people want to come and invest. Where there's safety, there's an opportunity for respect and relationships to be established and to create connections across the neighborhood. And that's the type of administration that I will have that will not allow that to continue, and that we will make investments to allow everyone to succeed and be independent and free to make choices.
Mayor Fisher, your rebuttal.
Redlining was a practice instituted in the 1930s to the 1950s where mortgage brokers would put red lines around areas of cities indicating these were dangerous areas or high-risk areas to put a mortgage forth. Redlining obviously has been long ago eliminated. What this resulted in was basically a form of institutionalized racism. 99% of the people that lived within those red lines were African Americans. When we think how most of us build wealth, it's through home ownership. So African Americans basically were denied the privilege of home ownership, where white families were not. So when you take a look at the wealth gap that exists today between white families and black families, redlining, and other methods of institutionalized racism were a big part of that. Now, as it relates to today, my administration has leaned in against what we call digital redlining. It's important that every person in this city, regardless of where they live, have access to high-speed internet, have the skills, and have hardware so that there's not a new form of redlining taking place. And with partners like Google Fiber, AT&T, Spectrum, and others, we're making that happen in our city to make sure everybody has access to high-speed internet.
Benson, your question to Mayor Fisher.
Business leaders repeatedly cite the need for more direct flights in and out of the Louisville International Airport. What would your next administration do specifically to make that a reality?
Our city, fortunately, is on most every business person's mind and developers' minds when they're thinking about that next breakout mid-sized city. That's good for us, obviously, because it's going to create more opportunities here in Louisville for all of us to be successful. The airline industry is very competitive, and airlines provide routes based on where they see supply and demand in the community. We created something, or we're part of something called the Louisville Regional Air Force Development Group that is working directly with airlines right now, Delta, Southwest, et cetera, so that we can work with them to provide direct flights to our markets that are most in need. So the number one market is Los Angeles, number two is Boston, number three is San Francisco, number four is Seattle. So we have economic data that indicates direct flights to those markets would help us both from a business standpoint and then also from a tourism standpoint. Now, some people think I'm a little crazy when I say this next, but one of the things that we've created and been a big partner with our administration is urbanism, okay? Urbanism, so bourbon and local food tourism. Kentucky is home to 95% of the world's bourbon. The other 5% is counterfeit, so stay away from that. But we had 1.4 million visitors on the Bourbon Trail last year. And so when you think about people traveling to Napa Valley for wine tourism, they are now coming to our city for bourbon tourism. So bourbon and food tourism is what we call bourbonism. Big festival this last week, Bourbon and Beyond, little challenge with the weather. But it's part of our strategy of creating festivals and the arts to bring people to our city. It's also great bourbonism, obviously, it's one of our strong food and beverage clusters. The reason why I mentioned this with air travel is that when you just take a look at business to business, and you take a look at Los Angeles, for instance, you may not say, hey, maybe we can't make it there. But we're getting a lot of tourists coming to our city. It's the first time we've ever had a 365-day-a-year tourism industry, and I think that's going to induce more direct air flights for us.
Councilwoman Leet, your rebuttal.
Thank you. I remember my first day after being elected 4 years ago on City Council, and I sat with Mayor Fisher at the time, and he said, well, what do you see for the future of Louisville? That was actually one of the number one things I said, is that we have to improve our direct air flights. At that time, there were only about 7 direct flights to different cities, and that's just not enough to be successful. But we have to be able to attract new people. We have to grow our population, and when you look at our population growth, we fall below the national average in population growth. So we need to create density in order to create new programs, in order to support those direct flights. I also am aware of the fact that there was opportunity to provide some funding for direct flights to help subsidize and attract incentivize those businesses to be here and to provide those direct flights. And there was a walkout by this administration on meeting that obligation. There was a change in that tenor of conversation, but we must support direct air flights to grow our community.
Mark Vanderhoff, your question to Councilwoman Leet.
Councilwoman Leet, anyone driving on downtown Louisville streets has noticed they've been torn up quite a bit for hotel construction, utility repairs. They're a little rough right now. What is your plan to pave downtown Louisville streets and make them smooth and attractive again for residents and visitors?
So I think that's a great question, and I think the one advantage that I provide in regards to our roadways and our infrastructure is my civil engineering background. I've worked for many, many years in the construction industry, and I actually know what it is to start a job and finish a job. It seems that we tend to spread our resources, and construction jobs seem to go on and on and on, or even if we don't get them funded, that it takes forever to get them funded. So we need to create a priority. Now, I will give credit. Because of Metro Council's influence over the last 4 years, we've been able to create some focus in terms of our planning for our community, in terms of focusing on creating a 3-year plan of which roads are going to be paved. But what we don't hear is the rest of the story. We talk about the great strides we're achieving to deal with the deferred maintenance gap of over $120 million that we identified less than 4 years ago in regards to our paving of our roads. And what we don't talk about is that we achieve a $25 million investment for our infrastructure of roadways, but we don't talk about the fact that $12.5 million of that goes on the taxpayer credit card to have to pay in the future to just do regular deferred maintenance of our roads. We should create an environment that is sustainable to take care of our roads, to provide the paving necessary so that people can commute back and forth to work, to get to all the businesses in downtown Louisville, South Louisville, West Louisville, and East Louisville. We have to focus on providing the roads. And what we can't continue to do is allow the roads to be congested with traffic and then decide after we've done the development to expand a road. We have to create a plan that allows expansion of roads, growth of our roads, and taking care of smart growth to be part of our solution.
Mayor Fisher, your rebuttal.
When I came into office, we were still at the end of the Great Recession, so we had very limited budgets at that point in time. Working together with the council, we've increased the budgets for roads up to about $18 million a year, and that's why, as you travel around the city, you see roads being paved almost everywhere. Certainly, with all the construction downtown, people talk about that. By the end of this paving season, you'll see most of downtown being repaved again. So we've had a huge increase of about 9 times since I came into the office with the original recession budget. The long-term transportation plan for the city is guided by a document called Move Louisville. That's available online for anybody to see. The priority of the Move Louisville plan is what we call Fix It First. We don't need new roads until we fix what we have. So you can go on there and you can see our plans for when your road is going to be paved and then new roads. We're redoing Dixie Highway right now. Of course, the Ohio River Bridges project was completed. River Road is going to be extended west from 7th to 15th Street. So we could, to be right by the new Waterfront Park Phase 4. So it's all online. You can check it out.
Betty Baia, your question to Mayor Fisher.
Yes, Mayor Fisher. A lot of people are very interested in hearing about the Bourbon Trail and some of the excitement that's going on downtown with that. But there are still people in our community who live in what we call food deserts. We don't hear that much about it anymore. You know, the terminology of the food deserts, people cannot drink bourbon, cannot eat bourbon. But so I want to know, what is your plan to try to bring more food to people who live in certain parts of towns that don't have it? And tied to that is, there was a recent report about Section 8, for example, people living in basically fire traps that have been approved by the city for Section 8 housing. I don't know if that report was overblown or overdrawn, but could you address those issues? I think everybody's excited about the Bourbon Trail, but people just want to eat too, and they don't have the ability to get food at any time of night like I can.
Well, obviously, poverty is destructive to all of us, and food is the essential element. So many things in our country right now, because of defunding at the national level, we can't take for granted anymore. It could be food security, it could be housing security, it could be universal health care, where everybody receives health care. We find what's taking place in the grocery business right now is that the large grocery providers are going to fewer, larger stores. And that means that they're shutting down some of the smaller stores that used to be the neighborhood bodegas that a lot of people would go to for their own foods. So that is a problem that we are working with the companies to say, hey, it's not fair for you to have great business in one part of our city, but then another part of our city where maybe our people don't have as much money to spend, for you not to have the type of coverage there. So we've had some very difficult and direct conversations with those companies. Thankfully, they are working on some solutions that I hope we'll be able to announce in the not too distant future. In the meantime, we are blessed to have one of the country's greatest food banks in our country with Dare to Care, so you'll see some more progress with them partnering throughout our city. But frankly, I think that's pretty sad that here in the United States of America, we call ourselves the richest country in the world, but a lot of our citizens don't have the basic necessities of food and shelter. On the Section 8 question, Betty, if anybody's living on a fire trap, obviously that's a problem for somebody. And that should not be permitted. That would surprise me if the Housing Authority is allowing that to take place, but I will take that with me after this and see where we're at. That's obviously not allowable.
Rebuttal from Councilwoman Lee.
Thank you. Well, I'll start with the Section 8 because it is happening. There are people who are trapped in their homes because elevators aren't working, and we have to immediately address this. They're having to live with bed bugs and other diseases in those homes, and we have to absolutely take care of them. We have to provide a voice for the people who don't have a voice. In terms of the food desert, I found that on this campaign trail that one of the best places to campaign is in the gas station when you're stopping to fill up, when you're filling up your tank. I've had several women, Betty in particular, stop me one night in South Louisville and said, "We have a problem." And she started running through the entire list of every grocery store that's closed west of 65, and in particular west of 9th Street. We absolutely have to address the fact that we need to provide resources. I've participated with New Roots, which is a great organization in our community that provides resources for fresh fruits and vegetables in their community on a very cost-effective plan that everybody can reach.
Paul Miles, your question to Councilwoman Lee.
Councilwoman, I toured the jail earlier this year, and what struck me was that a portion of that jail has become kind of a detox center for addicts. What is your plan to keep that from happening, and how do we pay for those services?
So I've also toured the Department of Corrections many times. I've talked to women in the jail who are going through drug addiction recovery programs, and their stories are emphatic. The drugs are overrunning our community, and we have to do something to stop the drug houses. When I talk to people throughout our community and they simply want to close down, I know in District 7 where every drug house is, but the challenge of fighting that blight on our community is real. For dealing with the jail and drug addiction, I think there's got to be a way that we're talking to people about creating resources. I asked a question earlier this year to ask about how many beds are there available for drug addiction recovery and dual diagnosis, where we're dealing with mental health as well as drug addiction. And I have yet to get an answer of how many beds do we have on an inpatient basis and an outpatient basis. And I know that that Metro Corrections serves as the largest detox facility in our state, which should never be. That was not how it was intended to be. Our corrections department is supposed to be a place where we're trying to reform people to re-enter society. And detox is not what their main job should be. We should have doctors involved, hospitals involved, the centers who provide medically assisted treatment, and provide places like the Healing Place where they go through the program. And we need to continue to support those types of organizations in our community where we take those beds that are being used for detox in our jailhouses and we're removing actually violent criminals from our community, where we are taking those people off the street instead of putting ankle bracelets on them and allowing them to be on home incarceration even though they've taken a life.
Rebuttal from Mayor Fisher.
Yes. Councilwoman is correct. The jail is the largest detox facility in the city, in the state. It's a symptom of what's happened with the opioid crisis that's affecting this region of the country. It started in Ohio, went to West Virginia, eastern Kentucky, and unfortunately Louisville is also being affected by it. When you take a look at the statistics in the jail and you ask who are the most frequent users, they call them familiar faces, they're folks that both have a mental illness and some type of alcohol or drug addiction. So through our program called Enough is Enough in the jail, which uses the Healing Place model, which is really run by people that are inmates that are helping fellow new inmates detox. It is really quite inspiring to see them do this. They don't have to do that, but they want to see people reach a better future. So we need to deal with this opioid crisis in a number of ways. We've sued the drug companies that have been distributing these issues so we can gain some money from them and put that into referral services. That's what we really need more of in our community, more treatment.
We now have a question from the audience. Joyce Bridge, National Council of Jewish Women, Louisville section. Joyce, your question to Mayor Fisher.
You have created a compassionate city for all of us. We have all been immigrants at some point in our lives, or our families have. I'd like to know how you plan to continue that and to be so welcoming to immigrants in the current, the current climate.
Thank you. The majority of the growth in our community is coming from immigrants. It's important that we grow as a city. We have 20,000 open jobs. I mentioned that before. Immigrants need to be here legally, obviously. But one of the things I really am most proud of in our administration is on day one when I was mayor, I said, here's going to be the 3 values that are important for our city. City of lifelong learning, an even healthier city, physical, mental, environmental, and spiritual health, but an even more compassionate city. And people looked at me like I had 3 eyes. They said, what are you talking about? You're supposed to be some tough politician. Being compassionate sounds like some soft thing. And I said, well, my life experience is that it's difficult for a lot of people to be compassionate than it is for them to be a skeptic from the couch. In other words, they'll yell at everybody and tell everybody what's wrong, but how about helping somebody? I mean, I think we're all born with kindness and compassion and love in our hearts, and somewhere we lose our way. And I think leaders should start with those type of human values first. Then we can get into secondary differences, like differences in politics or difference in religion. But we've lost sight of the fact that we're all interdependent and we're all in this together. We've had 40 cities visit us from around the world to learn about what we're doing with compassion. So they take a look at our Compassionate Schools project that we developed, and JCPS is doing a wonderful job with it right now. Compassionate healthcare is in our city as well. The way our immigrant community is growing. We can comply with all state laws and federal laws and still be a welcoming city. Our kids have got to be comfortable as global citizens. And so there's no better place for that to start than in our own city. So when they see people that are different from them in some type of way, that they're comfortable around them. So as they grow up, they'll be successful global citizens. That's the world we live in today.
Councilwoman Lee, your rebuttal.
Thank you. I always believe that it's about people over politics. There is a way for us to show loving compassion for our fellow citizens and still ensure diligent enforcement of our laws and rules to make sure that everyone in our community at every corner is safe. We're not faced with violent crime each and every day. When we're dealing with a community where there are 5,000 shots fired in a 6 square mile area, that doesn't feel like a very compassionate city to me. How do I explain to children that they're practically living in a war zone? That's not compassion to me. We have a lot of work to do to show that we're truly compassionate. We have to start with showing respect for every single citizen in our community. We have to provide safety throughout our community. And we have to provide connections so that people have the opportunity to lift themselves up out of their current position.
Our second audience question comes from Brenna Holcomb. Brenna is with Girl Scouts of Kentuckiana. Brenna, your question to Councilwoman Leet.
Okay, so we have a shortage of literacy and STEM courses in schools across the area. What are your plans to improve these courses for a higher graduation rate across school systems?
That's a great question, and it's really actually right in my wheelhouse. When I started engineering school more than 25 years ago, there were only 16% women involved in engineering, enrolled in the engineering. There were also about that many, maybe a little bit more, in also the legal fields and in the medical fields. 25 or so years later, there are still only about 23%. We've gone from 16% to 23% enrolled in our engineering classes at the university level. Whereas when we look at the medical and legal fields, they've actually achieved a 50-50% balance between women and men enrolled in those schools. So we have a lot of work to do to encourage women that science, technology, engineering, and I'll throw in arts because arts are so important to our creativity, and math, that women can have, we have the skills, we have the talent to do those things. We know that nurses are outstanding and they provide living wage jobs in our community. And finding the opportunity for those technology and engineering jobs is critically important. I've spent time in our grade schools trying to inspire girls to lead in those efforts. I remember I was out at Farnsley Middle not too many years ago, and I had the opportunity to lead a session in the summertime about girls' leadership in engineering and math and robotics. And it was easy to engage girls by showing them that it is fun. It's fun to be involved in science. It's fun to solve problems, and you get to use your creative skills to solve those problems. And we have to be intentional and focused about attracting more women to those fields. That will help solve some of the wage disparity we see sometimes between different job opportunities, and will provide opportunities for women across all job fields.
Mayor Fisher.
The STEM area, or STEAM area, both, is an area where we're making a lot of progress as a city. Coincidentally, I was at Semple Elementary this morning and went into one of the classes, and they were learning how to software code. And these kids were kindergartners, first graders. It was amazing that they're already starting. So many cities and many schools are looking at learning how to code just like learning a foreign language. So that's something that we need to do, and obviously really helps us as we pursue more STEM jobs. Louisville has been recognized as one of the most innovative cities in the country, and with that has come grants from Google, Amazon, Microsoft that have helped us do community outreach towards STEM. Our maker community, our hacker community, I really appreciate these folks. They've really led us with innovation as well. So there's a lot of examples at Code Louisville, at the Software Guild, where we can enhance the number of tech jobs we have, and we have to radically upscale that just like every city in the country.
Thank you, Brenna. We now return to our panel for questions. Mark Vanderhoff, your question for Mayor Fisher.
Mayor Fisher, I'd like to return to substance abuse. There are some experts in the recovery field who tell us that one key ingredient is transitional housing, so that when people come out of treatment, they can reintegrate into society. But what we're seeing in the nation and in Louisville is that residents don't want to see transitional housing in their neighborhoods. Right. So what would you do to make sure that Louisville has enough high-quality transitional housing all across the city?
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's an issue that we dealt with when our homeless encampment task force was in place 2 to 3 months ago. So unfortunately, a lot of people that are homeless are suffering not only with mental illness, but opioid and substance abuse issues. So the question is, where do they go when they come off the streets? So that was like two sides of the same coin of dealing with that issue. And you're right, there's quite a few parts of our city, South Louisville, West Louisville, where homes are not being run properly. They front as a transitional housing, but basically they're just taking money from people and not providing any type of services. On the other hand, there are some very good transitional housing units in our city that not only are providing housing, but they're also providing addiction services, 12-step methods, AA meetings, NA meetings. Those are the type of places that we need in our city. So it's critical that we have the right services at the right place for folks. Again, many of these questions, or a couple of these questions, are going back to addiction issues in our city right now. We are much more open in dealing with these things than we were when I took office, I can tell you, 8 years ago, when people were very hesitant to talk about issues like mental illness or addiction. Now, when you talk to a group of people, if I asked everybody here or at home through the TV camera, most everybody has been affected in some way by this opioid crisis. So we have to deal with that form of brain disease just like we would any disease, and housing obviously is a critical part of that.
Councilwoman Lee.
Thank you. In talking about substance abuse, what we don't spend enough time talking about in our community is prevention. We have to get to our children at the grade school level where they're experiencing and observing in their communities these drug houses, the traffic. People know, as I said earlier, I know where drug houses are in my community, and they're very hard to fight against. You have to be persistent and consistent to try and eliminate them from your community. But we have to get to our children and make sure that they have hope and opportunity and connections to not fall into the lifestyle of drug addiction. Some of that is a choice. We also know that we have a problem with opioids in our community, and we have to continue to address that. On transitional housing, we cannot load up blocks and blocks at a time in West Louisville with halfway houses where there are no homeowners on the block. We must be persistent in seeking solutions to overpopulating our neighborhoods with transitional housing that doesn't help the neighbors build a strong neighborhood.
Betty Baye, your question to Councilwoman Lee.
Yes, I have a broad philosophical question, I hope. When we look at judicial candidates, we always wonder what is their philosophy. And I'd like to know from you, Councilwoman, why are you a Republican? What part of the Republican agenda appeals to you? Whether it's the Trump agenda, the Bevin agenda, but why are you a Republican? And of course, I'll ask the mayor the same question. But I'd like to know what makes you a Republican in 2018.
He's a Democrat, so I hope you'll ask him that.
Yeah.
Just teasing. I think the important part of how I grew up in a very democratic, working, middle-class family. My dad was a UAW member. My mom was a clerk. And what they taught me was this value of hard work, this value of not expecting anything from everyone, that if I needed something done, I was expected to do it for myself. And I never expected anything. So I always went out, and if I wanted a pair of Nike tennis shoes, I did a lot of babysitting jobs, and I cut grass, and I found a way to get the Nike tennis shoes. And the first pair of Nike tennis shoes I bought was at the Kmart store just up the street. So that value of hard work and having parents in the household that were shaping me, I think those are the values of the conservative body that I think are important. Those strong family values, supporting hard work, integrity, and honesty. Those are the parts of the conservative agenda that I appeal to, along with making sure that we only live within our means, that we can survive with what we get, that we achieve what we have because we've worked hard to attain it. And those are the values that I purport to in the Republican Party. And I think that many behind me believe the same principles of strong family values, limited government, and controlling our expenditures, because we're never going to tax our way to meet spending. We have to control our spending.
Mayor Fisher.
Well, not everybody controls, obviously, the situation they're born into. So some people don't need any help. Other people do need help. But it's important, obviously, that everybody's accountable for that. So I'm a proud member of the Democratic Party. I stand up for women and families. I stand up for working people. I stand up for the principle that every child deserves a great public education. And this is where there's a real difference between us. I believe we should have gun safety legislation. I don't believe the state should try to take over our schools. I don't believe we should be attacking our immigrants. I don't think we should be attacking a women's right to choose. I don't think we should have a tax on science. And I don't think we should be attacking our LGBTQ community. And when we have changes in our tax law, they shouldn't favor the top 20% of wealthy people in companies in our country. That's just not right. This gap we have between wealth and income in our country is unsustainable from a moral standpoint, from an economic development standpoint, and from a public safety standpoint.
Paul Miles, your question to Mayor Fisher.
Mayor Fisher, is there anything you admire about your opponent?
Well, sure there is.
Tell us.
I've known the councilwoman for 5+ years or so. She could be doing anything she wanted to be doing tonight. And believe me, she may not want to be standing right here tonight. So I think anybody that puts their hand forward to run for public office, and I see a few elected officials here tonight, deserves thanks. And I almost believe everybody should run for public office so that they can get a little understanding of maybe things aren't so clear sometimes, or at least work for a campaign so that you can understand how all this works. It worries me to see people disengage from democracy. And it worries me when I see the low voter turnouts that we have in our country that elect some of the people that we have right now. We are strongest as a country when people understand the importance of our democracy and get out and vote. So I appreciate the councilwoman being a candidate that was successful for Metro Council, and I appreciate that she's thrown her hat into this ring.
Councilwoman Lee.
I agree with much what he said. I not just about me, but I do admire the aspect of being a public servant. I think it certainly changes the stakes of the game. We have to invest in our community, and the best way to do it is by being involved. I'm a boots on the ground kind of person. I've worked from the ground level, and he's right. I don't have to be standing here. I could be doing a lot of other things, but I'm not satisfied with the direction I've seen our community going, that I've seen our violent crime increase, that I've seen the overdose deaths, that I've seen children and women abused by officers in our community. And I don't want to stand for that anymore, which is why I chose to get involved. I couldn't stand by any longer. So the only way to change the direction of where you see things going is by engaging in the process, by becoming one of the process, offering solutions, offering a different vision, and tackling the problems that afflict our community.
Lisa Benson, your question to Council.
I don't think she said anything nice about me, did she?
I agree with you. I did. I agree with you about being a public servant.
Lisa, you're up.
It's a tough act to follow. I'll change the tone of the conversation back to the business community. Cities like Chicago, Baltimore, Washington, D.C. have all disclosed significant parts or all of the incentive packages that were offered to Amazon to land its HQ2 project. But the city of Louisville would not reveal its incentive package and has argued the information should remain out of the public view for competitive reasons. Should corporate incentive packages be kept out of the public view, and why or why not?
I'm not sure. Is that that's my question?
Yes.
Okay. In terms of, I absolutely believe in the importance of transparency in our government. We have to be clear. We should be operating from a level playing field, and every taxpayer who works hard every single day for 8 or 16 hours a day, depending on who you work for, to protect our community, to serve our community, to provide services in our community, they deserve to know where their taxpayers are going, their taxpayer dollars are going, and how those incentives are being spent, and what they're being done to attract businesses to our community. There is some legitimacy to the idea of economic advantage, but it should not be done behind the veil of a curtain. We should be able to be clear about what we're giving away in our community. And we have so many assets to offer. Why do we have to give anything away at all? We live in a geographically beautiful area of the United States where we're 1 day's drive from 2/3 of the population of the United States. We have a river on our border. We have southern Indiana as a neighbor. We have a geographic region that has all kinds of opportunity for economic growth. But part of what we have to deal with is the fact that we've got wages that are 12% behind the national average, that we need to have new programs to make sure that people can get to work, like veterans, our homeless community. There are many people that we need to address these concerns to.
Mayor Fisher, your rebuttal.
Well, so I've spent 35 years as a business person and an entrepreneur. I would just say, and I would ask anybody that's been involved with business, do you think that you should give your playbook to a competitor? I mean, come on. I mean, that would be business malpractice. So if you do offer incentives to somebody, they get approved at the state level. If there's some city issue involved, they're approved by the Metro Council as well. So I just think it's really important that you identify who your prospects are, you really work them hard, and then you put a deal in place that makes sense for the city and for them. Unfortunately, that is part of the way economic development runs in our country. And then there's the proper approvals that take place after that. But I think to disclose who your prospects are or what you're offering them, I just don't think it's good business practice, because other cities will take advantage of us, and then we'll lose those jobs. Part of the job of the mayor is to grow jobs. So you're going to do everything that you can to increase jobs in your community and not have any kind of competitive disadvantage.
That concludes all the time we have for questions. Each candidate will now have 1 minute for a closing statement. Metro Councilwoman Angela Leet, you will go first.
Okay. I was under the understanding I was going last, but that's okay. I'll start. Thank you for this opportunity to outline the differences between myself and my opponent. It is time to turn the page on this administration and its failed policies, misplaced priorities, and record crime. It is time to turn the page on corruption in City Hall and misused taxpayer dollars. It is time to turn the page on a mayor who divides our community and refuses to show leadership on difficult issues. It is time for Louisville's next chapter, a Louisville where our first responders don't have to work 2 and 3 jobs to provide for their families, where parents are confident that their children are receiving the best education, where wages are competitive, smart growth is welcome, and voters are heard. A Louisville where our families can grow and our businesses can flourish, where every individual has the opportunity for success, where we all feel safe. A vote for me is a vote for Louisville that is strong, safe, and growing. I'm Angela Leet, and I want to be your next mayor.
Mayor Fisher, your closing statement.
Yes. Well, thanks to all of you, and thanks, Councilwoman Leet. The future of our city fills me with a lot of hope. And I know in talking to so many of y'all in the beautiful neighborhoods of our city, you're hopeful too, and you're fired up about where our city is. We see that our city is going through a renaissance. 80,000 new jobs, 2,700 new businesses, over $13 billion in capital investments. We've never seen anything like this in our city. Crime is down, and more people are getting the education and skills that they need to succeed. But I will not be satisfied until everybody is along for the ride. My vision for our hometown is a future where every citizen in every neighborhood, south, west, east, downtown, every one of you has greater access to opportunity and the chance to be your best. That's why I will keep a laser-sharp focus on public safety and continue to create pathways for all residents to enjoy economic success. I go to bed every night feeling like I have the best job in the world. We've done a lot, but we have more to do, and we will get it done. And that's why I'm asking for your vote as mayor.
I want to remind our audience members and our viewers at home that the last day to register to vote or to change your voting information is Tuesday, October 9th. And don't forget, the general election is Tuesday, November 6th. We want to thank Mayor Fisher and Councilwoman Leet for joining us tonight. Thank you for taking part in this debate. And thank you, of course, to our panel as well, and the Coalition of Women in Civics Groups for partnering for tonight's debate. And we thank all of you for being here and for our viewers at home for tuning in. I'm Vicki Dortch, WLKY.